like I truly believe that anyone can be an artist, like anyone, like because when you look at a lot of the art out there, you just need to go to like any big art gallery and walk around and go, oh, look, there's a lot of stuff in here that's not that hard to make. But you've got to build the name up and the career and all that to get in those types of rooms with that type of art. But if you've got a good business mind and you're really highly motivated and you want to do it, like there's lots of art mediums that aren't too difficult. I know some artists who their artwork's not technically that hard, but then they present it in a really professional manner. And they get it in the right rooms, and then they price it well, all that type of stuff, and they back themselves, and they can stand next to their work and go, look what I've done, and hold their head up high. You know, the person viewing that would be like, look at that person, they're a serious artist.
But this mural, anyway, the one in West Footscray.
Yeah.
How do these people, are they reaching out to you anyway? They're just, were they just connections, or did you get a lot of people just Instagram?
But it was a real trip, right? Because the guy who contacted me, I knew his name just through like purchases on my online store.
Oh, cool.
And like I do things like little studio pop-ups and little events that like self-initiated events in between like gallery exhibitions and things like that. And went around to his house. He had like 7 artworks of mine on the walls. It was like all bought from different things that I'd done. And it's like, oh, wow. It was like, yeah, they renovated their house and had like the back half of their house, all the artwork in it was all mine. And I was like, shit. I walked in, I was like, man, like I felt real honored, you know. And he was like, yeah, a big fan of your work. And
wow.
Yeah, they just had their kitchen looked out onto a big roller door. And they just wanted me to paint the roller door for them.
You wouldn't often see your work in the context and the end context, right? Because when you're painting, it'll be in the studio. Maybe it'll move into a gallery space as well. But a lot of the times you wouldn't see contextualize where it's going to live permanently.
Yeah, exactly. Like once it leaves the studio, it's gone. But the funny thing is, it's like, it's gone from my memory. It's gone from like, I don't hold on to the past. Well, with my art, I try not to in life as well.
Yeah,
you know, because it's not a healthy habit.
Oh yeah.
But I forget about a lot of the paintings I've made.
Oh, you've churned through so many, man. Yeah. It's hard to stay attached. Well, you don't want to stay too attached to it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm like the way my studio practice is, I'm usually working on about 10 paintings at a time, and then I'm doing drawings, and then like every day, and then I'm working on say a mural or other projects, or even doing like a print release. So I'm like emailing photos of paintings that already exist, or compiling a design on the computer. And then, so that's actually so much art that's going through, and it sounds like I'm on the churn a bit, but I'm not. Like when I'm creating the artwork, I give it 100% attention.
Still in it.
And I've got very high quality control for it to leave the studio as well. And like lots of things, some things leave the studio and come back, and it's like, yeah, that I can see that why it didn't sell or anything, because it's not quite right. It needs a bit more finessing, you know? So, yeah, like I just forget about a lot of the artwork. Like once it's gone, it's gone. It's like I'm on to the next thing. I guess I'm very present with what I'm currently working on. And
maybe that's the key.
Yeah.
It is the key. Actually, speaking of that, when we had coffee, when we were in your studio, you gave me a lot to think about how you structured things and how you were forming habits. And at the time, I was listening to Atomic Habits, and I'll pass it on to you. That's something that you would really understand, because you put a lot of those things into practice already in what you do. Right after, as soon as I got home, had a chat with my wife, and where we struggled was juggling my work, her work, and all the daily responsibilities, 2 kids. So we were almost like every day kind of like having a loose structure but winging what we were doing. And as we were trying to do that, we noticed that there was just so much not getting done, so much, because we'll just have this laundry list of things to do, and then as you're chipping away at it, time has gone by quicker than the responsibilities are getting ticked off. So then it was just a matter of like, okay, this is what I learned from Tom. We are going to have hard blocks in the day, and then we're going to fill all the shit that fits into this category in this day. And then once lunchtime hits, then it's a reset. And then you're going to shift the mindset into, okay, now we have to take care of like this other pragmatic stuff. And it just forces us to engage in those tasks rather than having to be like overwhelmed and thinking, oh, we're going to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Like, no. We just have to do this one thing right now and just get this done. And then we can worry about the rest of that later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really helpful, man. And it came at the right time because I needed to have that conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that when I first started working for myself as an artist, I had this thing I used to call like just the Monday night blues. And it was like I'd come into the studio all hyped up, like, yeah, man, let's attack the week sort of thing. And I'd write my list of things to do for the week. But for some reason, it was all just one long list, and it's a week's worth of stuff. But you're there on a Monday trying to get it all done, and it's like you always go, oh, I failed, I didn't get it all done. When the actual fact is, it's a week's worth of work that I'd always get home on a Monday going, man, I just didn't get anywhere near as much done as I wanted to. I've only crossed 3 things off the list and feel a bit bummed out about it. And then I started spreading it out over the week. So I made my to-do list a Monday to Friday and then started segregating all the times and all that, and all art in the morning and all admin in the afternoon. And then I found that working to those blocks, it's like, oh, there's only 3 tasks in there. If I only have to be worried about these 3 tasks. And if I'm doing one of them, then I'm doing the right thing, And then I finish that, I move on to the next one, and it's like it's all done.
And you're moving at a quicker pace as well. Like know that you don't, when you're not clouding your thoughts with all the shit that needs to get done, you can just focus on the one thing, tick that box, and then you can immediately just get your mind into the next thing, and then tick that box. And then you've structured it in a way that, you do your studio work in the morning and then all the admin in the afternoon. But then you've also given yourself the allowance that once the admin's done, you can then go back into the studio and continue that way.
Yes.
Do you allow wiggle room between that?
With the creative time, the art, it's almost like I've retired and this is my passion. And this is what I'd be doing on the weekends. Like when I worked full time, like after work, I'll do art. Like on the weekends, I'd do art. So this is my pleasure time. And but with that, in order to have an art career, you got to be doing the admin. Otherwise, you got no business. And to make the art is the enjoyable part. Like ask any artist, they're like, oh yeah, all I want to do is paint. Like I don't want to do any of the admin stuff. But in order to run a business, you need to be doing both. And so I feel that the art time is like my playtime. It's like I'm retired. I'm just doing whatever I want to be doing. And then I have to flick into admin time and do the business, like run the business. And I've found at first I was starting to put the admin first and go, oh, I'll get into the studio, I'll check my emails and do all this. And it'll get to the end of the day, I hadn't done any artwork. And then I realized as well, it took me about 6 months to realize this. And I realized that people were wanting to buy artwork off me. I had nothing to show them because I was so caught up with applying for grants and trying to work out how to make money. I thought the way to make money was all from sitting in front of the computer doing the admin. When in actual fact, as an artist, I create my own products and the marketing is the artwork, and all the backbone of my whole business is creativity and making art. So if there's no art being made, I got no business really. There's no admin. I'm just pursuing leads and applying for grants that I may or may not get, things like that. It's
So what's your relationship like with doing the admin?
I hate it. No, it's a love-hate relationship. I worked as a graphic designer for 13 years. And when I left that industry, I was just like, just get me away from computers. I just don't like sitting at a computer. And I realized that, I got to do it in order to run my business. But I just I try to get it for maybe 2, maximum 3 hours and then get back to painting again in the afternoon. That's I don't know.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking about that dynamic because through the Arts Career Academy, you and Claire talk about that balance between doing the art and also the business component of it. And I'm just wondering for artists whether or not it's something that should be maintained and kept as just something that they love to do, and whether the adding in that dynamic of the business could really taint that passion and then that drive and that love. And that's something that you've spoken about and you just touched on then, how there is that balance that you're trying to, that you don't want to let the admin override it because it kills the creativity, but then at the same time you kind of need to have both of them in tandem and looks like in equal parts at all times.
I wouldn't necessarily say in equal parts. It's like sometimes I open up my emails and there's no emails have come through. It's like, great, I've got no emails to get back to, or I might need to write some myself. But there's always other things going on. But if someone wants to be an artist and just create art and that's it, like that's fine. But you're going to need to probably have a day job, or you have an agent who you're going to be paying pretty much their wage for them off the back of your artwork, and also, or you could have galleries that are representing you, but you need to be selling a lot through galleries in order to make a full-time career out of it. And then once again, most good galleries to take 50%. So there's all this thing, like if you can get to a point where you don't need to do any admin, that's fine. Like I know artists who work like that. They have people behind the scenes doing everything for them and all they do is create. But I tell you what, like there's a lot of money that's not hitting their pocket because
And there's a lot of work that needs to get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, I'm like, I've have assistants help me and things like that. Like, I pay wages with my art to cut back on things that I don't really want to be doing myself.
I've had this conversation a few times with different artists about career paths. And you've been a designer. You'd be able to. Did you go through uni? Do you do all?
Yeah, I did. I did a TAFE course.
Yeah.
And then I did the final year in a degree off the back of that.
For design and a bunch of other design-related disciplines, there's an actual trajectory that you can go on. You finish school, you apply, you send in your pre-selection kit. You do the thing with the slides. Do you have to do that?
Oh man, my uni situation to get in was pretty weird. Like it was back in 2003 was when I applied. I started in 2004. But I'd never, all I'd done was graffiti. I had nothing to show for myself. It's like, oh, look.
Just show them a rap sheet.
Yeah, look, look at these trains and track sides I've done, But, so I thought, gee, I got to do something. I was completely computer illiterate. Like, I remember at the time I needed to have, my wife would log into my emails for me, and then I'd just type and she'd go, yeah, now press send sort of thing. It was like I was that bad, fishing around with one finger trying to find the letters and stuff.
Dude, you're not that old, man.
Yeah. That's just how it was. I worked, I always had hands-on jobs. And then, so I painted some canvases. And they were the first canvases I ever painted. And I took photos of them and submitted them for to get into TAFE in Swinburne. And I just got in. But, it was... but I went for my interview. I was living in London at the time, living in a refugee home in London. I didn't mean, I wasn't a refugee or anything. I answered an ad and it turned out that there was doing some dodgy in the building and they rented out a room on the side to make a bit of pocket money. And I was in that room. But I had to do the interview from a phone box at 4 a.m. in London and it was snowing outside. And I was standing there just just trying to be all upbeat and really keen to get into graphic design and stuff like that. And they ended up getting me in. But, it was a bit of I didn't have to submit anything other than just photos of those canvases. But I remember the coordinator that said, oh, I remember you. Did we let you in? I thought, you prick. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go for this. And, I had, I guess at the time I had a bit of a self-belief that I wasn't any good at studying because I didn't finish high school and I wasn't really into into studying ever in my life. And I got dyslexia and things like that. So I always thought, I'm no good at studying. But I tell you what, I've been working in really crappy jobs. I worked as a chef for years, but then when I was in London, I was working for a skateboard company in the warehouse, just packing boxes and everything. And I was just like, I got to get out of this. Like this, it was like 2.5 years in. I had friends who were on the dole and they were earning just a little bit more than me. I mean, a little bit less than me, sorry, every month. And I'm like, I'm working my ass off here. And so I thought, creativity and computers, graphic design, that's the one for me. And I ended up like really, I was so highly motivated to make this work. And I got really good grades, and I learnt the compute. Like at first, I was all a bit intimidated by the packages. You open up like any Adobe package, there's so many tools and stuff to learn. But I tell you what, it just clicked with me, and I loved like learning how to operate all those programs. And I picked it up really quickly. I was blown away. It was the first time in my life that I'd studied something and gone, oh man, I can do this.
Dude, timing is real key as well, because I remember around about that time. I graduated high school in 2001, so it would have been around about then when people were starting to become quite familiar with what Adobe is capable of doing. Before then, people were just kind of like dicking around with it and just making all sorts of garbage. But then it was at that time when it was really starting to become a really useful tool. And because I don't think it was necessarily the staple in the industry at the time. There was still Corel Draw. So it was the timing of you coming into design. It lined up really well with where the industry was heading as well. Yeah, I remember going for a few jobs, and they only used Quark Express. Yeah, and Quark.
And and that was I tried to blag my way, just going, it's like InDesign, and it just wasn't like.
It's not. I've never used Quark.
Well, it was. It's like it's like doing something opposite-handed.
Oh,
God. In a job interview, they'll set you a task, and then you're like, man, none of these tools are working, and all. It's like it's the same but different, and everything's in the wrong place, and it's a bit of a different way of thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Did you use that when you were at Christie's? What would have been InDesign? Sure.
That was InDesign.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And a thought that I had listening to a podcast when you were talking about that journey, that trajectory. So going to uni, actually. Let's just take it all the way back, because I was talking about pathways and uni and design and how there's set pathways for a lot of creative disciplines, for design disciplines specifically. But with art, not so much. You can go to uni and, learn your fine arts and whatever else. That's more for technique, but I don't think that they really focus on the career side of things. I don't think uni is very helpful with developing careers. That's just through my experience as well. And I've been thinking about with art, why there isn't necessarily a structured template with how things should be. And I think there's a lot of reasons that play into that. I think, we touched on this when we were speaking over coffee about how it's something that's not necessarily fully appreciated culturally. It sort of is, but not taken seriously. But then I was also thinking that I don't think that you can have a structured course or a pathway necessarily for artists, because it's just such an individual pursuit. And I think that there's a lot to be gained and a lot to be learnt through just jumping in and making all the mistakes and to learn along the way. And, to not necessarily be guided either. I think that comes inherent in creating the artwork as well.
Yeah, I can't really speak on art schools because I never went. But I do know that the more authentically you can be yourself, and the more you can tap into your own creativity and the things that work for you, is you get the best results. Like for me, I've been on a bit of a journey with my artwork, and I see some older pieces, and it's like I remember for a while I was having a hard time doing line work, but like black line work is a core part of my artwork, and it's how I wanted to continue to paint, but I was struggling to do it with a brush. I didn't like doing the lines, and they weren't coming out clean, and all this type of stuff when I was using a brush. And then I went through on this journey of finding all these different mark making tools, and it was only once I found the airbrush, it was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. Yet no one could have told me that, really. It was like a journey I had to go on myself. Like I was going around Europe, going to all the graffiti stores and all the art stores and that, finding all these different mark making tools. And but none of them were really working for me until I landed on the airbrush. And that was so I know what you mean. It's a journey that each artist needs to go on and find themselves.
Yeah.
It's like even, the stuff that like with the Art Career Academy, the art school that I've got with my wife, we never tell people how to make their own art. We just help them with the business side of things and how to actually, advance through their art career. Because, at the, it's so personal. You can get advice and guidance, I guess. People can make suggestions, but it's up to the individual whether they want to take them on or not.
I wonder if it could work the other way, because you would have a lot of artists come in and saying that I want to turn pro and I want to see if I can make a living out of this. I feel as though that everyone has the capacity to be an artist of whatever discipline that they choose to be. I was wondering whether or not you could have someone that has the business acumen, that already knows, like an entrepreneur, for example, right? And they just think, I've got all these business tools. I've got a history of working in corporate. I'm sick to death of doing this. I want to start an art career. I want to go back and just express myself through that way. And whether or not reverse engineering the artistic career could work with bring in the business side before the art side.
Like I truly believe that anyone can be an artist, like anyone, like, because when you look at a lot of the art out there, you just need to go to like any big art gallery and walk around and go, oh, look, there's a lot of stuff in here that's not that hard to make, but you've got to build the name up and the career and all that to get in those types of rooms with that type of art. But if you've got a good business mind and you're really highly motivated and you want to do it, like there's lots of art mediums that aren't too difficult. Like look at Warhol. He's one of the most famous artists in history, and he was essentially a screen printer. Like I know he painted. He did more than just screen printing, but the core of his work was screen printing, and he had a team of people even doing that for him. So it's more coming up with the ideas and then being able to express them. But there's also a lot to do with presentation as well. Like I know some artists who their artwork's not technically that hard. Like they might project their artwork and then trace it out and paint over the top of their line work or whatever. It's not rocket science, but then they present it in a really professional manner, and they get it in the right rooms, and then they price it well, all that type of stuff, and they back themselves, and they can stand next to their work and go, look what I've done, and hold their head up high. The person viewing that would be like, look at that person, they're a serious artist, whereas another artist could look at how they've made it and go, gee, it's like they sort of cheated, they traced it, or they printed it out or whatever. Like there's so many ways of actually making your artwork, and also now with like video work, and there's so many different things you can do. Like you could even do a video work where you don't even hold the camera, you just conceptualize it and hire a team of filmers and an editor and get them, and the lighting team and all that sort of stuff, and do it really professionally and package it right.
I believe that, man. I believe that there is, we all have the capacity. I think that, like, even from birth, and speaking with Liam Sardea, he's a philosopher of creativity, and he helped me just shift my perspective on what art and creativity, what it can look like, and to help understand like how creativity is attached to chaos, right? So like try to think like a kid. Try to remove as many labels and as many boundaries and limitations as possible, and just freely express, and don't worry about anything, actually. Just get it, just do it and see where that takes you. For you, it's like, that journey of experimenting before you found that the airbrush was the tool of choice to complement the brush, the paintbrush. For people, it could just be even broader than that. It's like, what is their discipline? Is it a camera? Is it a brush? Is it actually just could be dance? You know, and a lot of things that we don't do because there's this fear of judgment, not just from ourselves, but from peers as well. And it's just those limiting things that kind of prevent a lot of people from pursuing, you know, it's any kind of artistic expression.
Yeah, like I had heaps of hurdles to get over before I could pursue an art career. Like I had this belief that you needed to be able to paint like photorealism in order to be an artist, or I could just sit here with a pen and paper and do a drawing of you and it looks just like you. I thought if I can do that, then I've got the green light to go and pursue an art career. I still can't do that. You know, I still can't paint. Like I paint portraits, but they're in my own style. But I've tried to paint them like more based off photos and all that type of stuff. I was sharing a studio with Adnate, who's one of the best, portrait painters in Australia, especially with spray paint anyway, and on large scale. And so I was watching him work, and I realized that he was like just a slave to his reference, like down to each hair, you know, like just and then he would look over at me, and I didn't have any. I'm just painting, you know, it's just like, with nothing, you know, just out of my imagination. And then I tried to paint the way he paints, and I realized that it uses a completely different part of your brain.
Yeah.
And after trying it, I've got the utmost respect for people who paint in that way. But I realized that there is a large proportion of artists who have that belief that they need to be able to, paint in a traditional sense. You know, paint. If you look at any portrait prize, for instance, most of them will be painted trying to nail the photo, the reference images the best they can, and I feel that there's that not all artists are, I feel that if artists play to their strengths, then there's a lot more to explore within yourself, you know. Because
there's a lot of experimenting needed to identify what those strengths are as well.
Yeah. Well, think about it. If you have like 100 artists who are all doing portraiture and they're all using photographic reference and they're trying to nail the photo, it's going to be really difficult to tell who's who. Whereas if you got someone who's gone completely off track and they've just done it their own way, and yeah, they might have used a bit of reference to get the composition right or work out where the lighting is or whatever. But then they've just sort of then put the reference away and let it flow. Like they'll really stand out from the crowd. And I think that's probably but everyone's got different ideas on what's right and what's wrong with art. That's the beauty of it. You know, I can say what's important to me and what I enjoy about art and what I like viewing in art as well. But the next person might say, no, I like it like this. It's like food. You know, some people like lasagna, some people like tofu. You know. Some people like steak. It's just the way it is. You know.
A good example of this is when we went out for dinner, and there was that cross stitching of those two men looking at the dog. So that would have been taken from a reference photo, I assume so anyway. And you saw some beauty in that. You took a photo of that dog. And then the next day or a couple of days later, you posted your interpretation of that dog. And straight away, I was like, look at how he is just taken. And it's just kind of moved on through different filters almost. This one dog is now sort of captured in Tom Gerrard's style. You know, and you're absolutely right. Like, you got to go through this particular relinquishing these limitations and expectations to say, okay, I don't need to necessarily fit this, and this. I just have to just fuck around until I get to a point where it's like, this is what it is for me, right? This is my style, my art. And that even just ties back into what you were saying about developing, a big part of your work isn't in the work so much as developing who Tom Gerrard is. That's how you've been able to separate yourself from this particular artist, or just to give yourself more definition as an artist. No, so talk about the importance that, of you personally, but also with in the academy, how, what are the lessons or what are the teachings about developing, I guess, like a personal brand without calling it a personal brand?
Well, I feel it starts a lot with your influences, like getting clear on what who your influences are or what they are. Like, it doesn't have to just necessarily be art. It can be from all different areas of life, because even though there's like billions of people on the planet, we're all unique in our own way, and we've all lived different experiences, and we're born in different times, in different locations, in different environments, and we're exposed to different things. And it's finding what your like soup of, like, oh, that's cool, oh, I like that, oh, I really like that, and what all that is for you.
Soup. I like that.
Because it's different for everyone. It's not going, and not everyone's going to agree with your flavor either. But finding what that is, because as soon as other people start going, no, you need to drop that and have more of this, and you start someone else starts messing with your recipe a bit, and I find the more, if you can get clear on what that is, and also like who you want to be going forward, like who you're looking up to. So, like, say there's all these, who are your heroes, more or less, and they might be different as well. They might come from different parts of your life, and then you can sort of craft around, all right, what are you into, and who do you want to be in the future, and then you just start sort of closing that gap. And as far as like creative styling and all that sort of stuff, you don't, like, I know what it's like to be in a position going, oh, I want to do art, but I don't know what it looks like yet. And then you just got to get to work, because it's not, you can be as clear as day on your folder of influences and all this sort of stuff, but until you actually start executing that, you don't know what it's going to look like. For me, like, black line work is something that's really, it's like my signature within my artwork, and that comes from graffiti. Like, I used to do pieces. I've done outlines on pieces in lots of different colors, but my staple was always black. And then I knew it had high contrast against, lots of different colors, and it always stood out. And, I know I can paint lots of different things, and as long as I put that black outline on it, it always looks like my artwork. But then I can look back at lots of other artists and my heroes, and I can see where it all came from as well. And but then there's other things, like I grew up skateboarding a lot, and I still love I still watch the skateboarding world, and I still skate a bit and all that sort of stuff. But there's even things that happen within the industry that I think, oh, that's cool how they do this or that, and I start bringing that into my own artwork, as far as a business point of view or different things like that. So. Whereas, like, most other artists aren't looking to the skateboarding industry for business advice, it's like, it's finding those things that make up you and who you are, and pursuing that, because at the end of the day, it's all about fun, and the more fun you can have with it, and the more you can just sort of drop your guard and let it flow out of you, the more unique it'll be you, and the better artist you'll be, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about when people coming in and trying to tinker with your formula, and it's a hard one to try to discern the good advice from bad advice, and I think it's just going to come through trial and error, because we have, and to what you were saying about hyperrealism, that some people will have this conception that is the goal, right, to try to create things as realistic as possible. If you're coming in with these preconceptions and you're letting people tell you what your work should look like, I think that is when it starts to dilute that soup, and for you, how much attention do you give with all these little tiny components that make up you and your work, from the creative point, the creative components or the business components? How much of everything that you do are you mindful that it's all coming back to the Tom Gerrard brand?
Oh, I don't think about it that much these days. I just show up to the studio and do my work, but I continually, I study art every day when I'm having my lunch. Like, I'll sit there in front of the laptop and and watch YouTube videos and like do video tours of all the art exhibitions that's happening in like New York and Paris and things like that. Just see who's who, what's going on, and also study a lot of art history. And I still do. I still upskill as far as like I study like color theory and perspective and things I want to start bringing into my art, because like I'm where I'm at now, but I'm on my creative journey, and I might in 10 years time my art might look totally different, and I'm cool with that if that's the path it's going on. And I'm even chipping away at some conceptual pieces in the studio that I don't think will be ready to show for about 10 years, but
Right.
but I'm working on them now. But I just know that there's certain pieces that if I just come out with now and go, ta-da, here's my new work, people are going to be like, what? Like, I know that I've got to bridge the gap a bit. And yeah, I've got a whole bunch of different things I'm working on that don't look like the work I'm known for.
So you've intentionally set and forecasted a particular style that interests you now, but you've put it out in front and said that this is where it could potentially be in 10 years. And do you see that influencing, even indirectly influencing how you're operating now?
Yeah, totally. Because
Was that the point?
no, this artwork just came through me, But I know that the market that I'm working in at the moment, it doesn't really work for that. And even the because they're more conceptual pieces, because I like with my artwork, there's not too much to read into. Like I can write a blurb on it, and you go, oh, okay, I get that, But there's I'm wanting to go a lot deeper into that. I'm starting to think a lot more about my artwork and where I want to take it into the future. And there's pieces that just start forming on their own, not like by accident. Like there's one I'm working at now that's based off like I do my own wall calendar and I just cross off a day every day, but it's always in a different paintbrush with a different thing. And then you can see all the writing coming through and all these different like elements that make up. And it's like almost like saying every day is a little bit different, but I'm a year into it now, but I want to hang it as one massive work. So it's not something I can really sell, but it's something that you can show in an institutional gallery. Like it would look great in like the NGV or something like that. So in order for me to show that work, I need to get myself into the position where that work can be shown. So it motivates me on my career to make sure that like, am I showing up right? If I'm like starting to sort of, like take low hanging fruit offers and all that and showing in galleries that are taking me away from that path, then I know that like, hang on, mate, I want to show that piece in a few years. So I got to be moving in the right direction. So it does help guide my career at the same time,
Kind of like how Picasso kind of just evolved to where he was at the end, where he was actually, he started off back to, being hyper real. He wasn't hyper real, but it was definitely a lot of realism. And then it just evolved into abstract.
Yeah. He was formally trained because his dad was an art teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his whole thing was about like dropping all those learnings and paint like a child. So,
there we go. Back to that again.
Yeah.
Fuck, this really just got me thinking about that, how you have forecasted, you have set a particular goal. And I'm just thinking through that process, if it has, you have this particular style that you're moving towards, which has then affected the way that you practice now. And let's call it a 10-year journey. And in the 10 years, there's so many things that's going to happen in your life, right? So much life experience. And they're going to be coming back into your work. And I'm wondering whether or not that is just going to deviate you away from this goal into a completely different style that you hadn't even anticipated you'd go. But it was the planting of that seed that got you going here that has taken you over there.
Yeah, totally. I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Where as far as like the art that comes out of me, like I'm just going with the flow. And if I'm working on an exhibition, it's like, all right, like I got to conceptualize this whole exhibition and make sure that it works as a concise, series of paintings. Whereas, like outside of that, I just go with the flow. And I find that my environment changes up my art a lot. But a lot of it really comes down to what I'm drawing on a daily basis. Like, because I started off 10 years ago now, actually. I was working in London as a graphic designer for Christie's at the auction house there. And I wanted to develop my art career, but all I had was graffiti. Like every time I pulled out a sketch, I had heaps of sketchbooks. They were all filled with just letters, just trying to do different pieces and wild styles and blockbusters and different ways I could write my name over and over again. And then I thought, all right, it's time to, I want to start pursuing art. Like what can I do? And then I started just drawing every single day in these little passport sized books. And my rule was no graph. Like just what can you draw? And the first few were horrible. And I was like, oh no, I don't know how to draw. Like I've got a long way to go. But just through showing up every day, it helped create my style, because at first all the drawings were of things around London. So I started drawing all these buildings and, just different things I was seeing. And then I moved to Barcelona, and then they started taking on more of a Barcelona vibe, and then moved back to Melbourne, and it started taking on more of a Melbourne vibe. And then recently I've been living in northern New South Wales, and it's a bit more coastal and rural, and all these things start seeping into my artwork. But it all starts with me drawing my surroundings and drawing just drawing every day. And I also it's not just what I see around me, but it's also what I see with my eyes. So I screenshot a lot off Instagram. It's like, oh, look at that amazing image, or even look at that painting. I want to do a drawing of that painting by another artist. Like anything. I take lots of photos of the TV. Like a lot of the reference for the heads I'm painting these days that people haven't really seen yet, but they're starting to come out of the studio now. It's all taken from me taking photos of the TV while watching movies and stuff like that. Because there's great character development out there. Like people, they dress people up in wigs, mustache, like this and that. They create a really cool character, and like you see them around the streets, but it's hard to sort of say, hey, stop, let me take a photo, But just anywhere, just always taking photos with my phone, and always and just drawing every day.
Just constantly absorbing and trying to take things in.
Yeah.
Was there, when you started drawing those passports, and you're what, at 150 now?
Yeah, about that. I think, around that, yeah.
Was there an intention to develop a style, or was it just start and let's just see where this goes?
Yeah, I just knew I needed to do something.
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't going to, the answers weren't going to appear from just standing in front of a blank canvas. Like I needed to be proactive. And, at first I started drawing with pencil, and I'd draw with pencil, and I'd be like, oh, I'm on my lunch break. I'm going to eat my lunch and then spend 20 minutes drawing and then get back to work. And I'd draw with pencil and then rub it all out because it was no good, and then realize I've got a blank page at the end of it. And it's like, well, that's not really learning. So I ditched the pencils and just went pen on paper. And that's how I still draw to this day. But that dog that we were talking about in that cross stitch in the pub, that's just another one of those things. It's like, oh, I like that dog. That's cool. Photo of it, and then output it in my own style. And then, when I'm doing paint, I know I'm already going to use that dog in a painting. I know it already. I'm working on in a series of interior paintings, and that dog will be curled up on a rug or something like that. He'll be in there.
Yeah, you said it that night. You just saw it and you said it, and you're like, and you already you took it from something in the corner of your eye, and then you're already kind of like, okay, these are the steps. It's going to end up in this particular painting.
Yeah,
I thought that was magnificent how you were able to just take it from poof and then took it on this journey. Yeah,
it's like even the other day, I was at the fish and chip shop, and they've got the posters of all the different fish, and I took a photo of that, and I made all these dishes, like ceramic dishes with fish on them, and they're all based off that poster. But they also had one of seafood, and I drew a lobster, and it's like, oh, I like that lobster.
That was great.
Oh, thanks. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna once again, I'm working on these interior paintings, and that I'll tell you what, I'm going to do a big rug, and that lobster will be on there, or it might be on a cushion cover on a couch or something like that. So there's all these little bits that will appear in my paintings, but they all come from random things, like standing at the fish and chip shop waiting for your food,
And it's not for nothing as well. There's always something, and this is something that I've been trying to implement as well, that I'm not doing anything for the purpose of just doing that thing, that there has to be multiple reasons. And how is something as simple as like, well, not simple, but this conversation, it's going to send me off in a different trajectory, but then it will just be almost like, okay, now I've had this conversation and it's not just to clock up the numbers, right? It is there for me to take away at least one thing that's valuable. And then how do I transfer that bit of knowledge into not just my work, but also in, you know, my personal life? And I think when you were talking about just trying to understand, I guess, like you look for purpose and also a lot of meaning behind what it is that you're doing in this instance, and then seeing how that can transfer across to other areas as well. I think like a lot of that just comes with age, right? Like just, you know, growing up, just becoming wiser. But I've given that a lot of thought as well. Like, you know, wanting to do something and give it life that's more than just what it is in that particular, that moment. I think that's an important thing, just to see how you can transfer a lot of the skills and behaviors and lessons in life.
Yeah, I feel it's as you move through life, you realize there's certain things that are important to you. Like when you say that, there's one thing that popped into my mind, and like I'm very environmentally conscious in all areas of my life. I really try to cut back on as much waste as possible, and one area of that is washing my brushes out and having the pigment go down the sink. Like I just know it's not good for the planet. It's like plastic, you know, whatever. Like so I try to limit the amount of pigment that goes down the sink. So I have paintings in my studio that I use just to clean my brushes, and that's where the tree paintings that I do came from. You know, the trunks were all like any warm color, like any browns, reds and all that, they'll be the trunks, and anything more greeny and bluey will be up in the top of the tree. And then I just sort of work out where it goes based on the value of the color and where it belongs on the painting. But all they are is me cleaning my brushes. And I never set out to do those paintings. It was just like, I've got to wipe this off somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. And they evolved out of their own necessity for me to not want to wash the pigment down the sink. But now they've become a core part of my artwork, and I'm really loving them. And like even yesterday, I painted a mural for my first time doing these tree paintings. I remember the first paintings I sold of them as well. I was like, oh, people actually like these. They were never meant to really be anything other than, I don't know, somewhere to clean my brushes, just an environmentally friendly act, you know.
There you go.
But
you couldn't purposefully just go out and paint them though, could you? Or do you, now that you know that they're a thing, can you then go out and paint them, or do you still need to paint something else and then use them?
No, I know how to paint them now without doing that. Like I paint them intentionally now.
Yeah.
But now
then you need something else to clean your brushes.
Now I'm still in the habit of cleaning my brushes. So now I've been doing all these different things with cleaning my brushes. Like for instance, there's lots of I have lots of offcuts of paper, like nice paper. And it's like, what am I going to do with this? It's like, it's too small for me to bother selling, really. But so I've started making birthday cards for friends and family. And I always have like an area of my studio where I've got a whole bunch of these offcuts of paper on the wall. And I clean my brushes on them now. And I make these cool little paintings. And when it's someone's birthday, it's like, you know, write on it, put it in an envelope and send it to them. And they love it. Like, they're like, oh my God, like, thanks so much. You gave me a little painting. And it's like, just clean my brushes. Yeah, well, I don't say I was just cleaning my brushes to them. I say, no worries. But you know, I go around to friend and family's houses, and they're stuck on the fridge for years later, or some of them have even framed them and things like that. And it's like, oh, cool. Because normally, once again, a birthday card, you buy it, you put it on your mantelpiece, and then a month goes by and you throw it in the bin. You know, whereas this is another way of
it's got value.
Stopping that from going in the bin. And I'd love to see you know, maybe one day I'm dead and buried, someone goes through and tries to find heaps of these birthday cards, because I document them all. So like I know which ones have gone out, and you know, I've got to be sensitive. Like it's something like I might it might be someone's 75th birthday and I'm giving them one of the sun going down or something. It's like, oh no, it's a bit too literal. You know, like, let's do something nice, you know.
That's a great idea, man, especially because, you know, your work has value. I don't mean financial value, but there's substance in it, right? And flicking through those passport size, that your visual journal, it felt like it felt more than just a sketch, right? It was like, to pump your tires. It was like when I was at the Louvre and there was this Da Vinci sketch where it was just like throw ups with charcoal. Not much to it. It wasn't the Mona Lisa. It was just some sketches he threw up. And I'm looking at it thinking, fucking hell, I'm standing as far away as Da Vinci was, and you could see the strokes that he put in. It's like, that is real. He touched that. He made that. And there was that element of authenticity that was in that. Like, it wasn't anything that he wanted it to be clean and perfect, but it was something that he had probably didn't give it much thought. I probably gave it more thought than he did, and that would just be like those trees for you. It's that it wasn't intended to be a polished art piece, but just through that, that's where the value of it is that it was just meant to be a throwaway, but you can see the actual strokes behind it. And you can almost like imagine when you were just sitting in your studio doing that. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I just love painting. At the end of the day, like that's my favorite thing to do in the world. Like I found this photo of me at my mum's house, and it was when I was in preschool, and it's really man, it was a trip to see actually. But I remember having the photo taken, and it was me playing my favorite game, and I had this bucket of water and a brush, and I used to paint all the wooden like climbing equipment and that. And when you paint it with water, it'd go dark, and I'd try to get the whole thing painted up before it starts drying. And then I just look at like my teenage years, just running around, just painting on everything. And then like now my output in the studio, and I haven't really stopped, and I realize that it's something really innate within me. I just love to paint, like, and I'll continue to do it for the rest of my life,
And that leads me to, you've mentioned that on, your podcast, you've spoken with stacks of different artists. I think, what are you, like 180 something deep now?
187.
187. And the two things that you said were the biggest takeaways from artists, the two main sticking points was, how do I make money, and is my work good enough? With the is my work good enough, that's, this inferiority complex, or, call it that. You can call it imposter syndrome, whatever it may be. But for someone like yourself that's always painted, was there any fear of your work not being good enough?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like heaps. Like it was, for years, it was other people's validation that was giving me permission to move forward, because I thought I've still got to learn how to do it. I've got to learn how to paint because my paintings aren't very good. But people were buying my paintings, and people were asking, like requesting me to paint for them, and they were paying me to do murals and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm still trying to learn how to do this. And I just kept going with it, really. And like, it's like anything, like when are you ever really there? It's like creativity is so subjective. Like, you can know that you're good at something, but like then there's that next level. It's like, yeah, but I'm good enough to get this opportunity or that opportunity. Like, I'm applying for like residencies in New York and stuff like that, but I'm thinking, where do I fit within the other applicants? Are they just going to blow me out of the water, and the judge is going to think, oh, why did this guy even bother? Or am I going to get it? But you just got to keep moving forward with all that stuff. Like, a big thing for me was like the faces that I paint, like the heads. They, in my eyes, like they've never been good. Like I like them. I like to paint them, but I've never looked at them and gone, oh, that's a really good painting. Like, there's been a few that I've really felt that way about. But because I kept comparing them to like people doing photorealism and things like that, and it's only once I really started seeing them that they're caricatures, like that's when I started to really like them a lot more. But for years I was like, these aren't good enough. But now But now I just know there's part of me, and if I take them out of my art, like it's like me chopping an arm off. You know, it's part of who I am, and it's part of the artwork that I do. But like that's why now going forward, I'm starting to look a lot more into photo reference, like taking photos of the TV and things like that, and start to play a bit more with lighting and shading and just learn a bit more about the anatomy of the face, because I've always just painted them out of my head, and then they sort of look a bit sameish because I'm not referencing anything. I'm just like going eyes, nose, mouth, mustache, like hairline, like whatever. And now I'm looking to sort of take them to the next level and see what's out there for me. But I know that the photorealistic approach is not the answer for me. It's like on the quirkier side of things, how can I work with these? You know?
So it's a matter of then just trying to set a different criteria for what is good enough, right? Like if you're saying that it's not good enough because it's not photorealistic, but you could also say that, you know what, these aren't supposed to be photorealistic. What they're doing is that it's helping me establish an aesthetic, you know, or it's helping me attaching who I am to a particular style that, and I'm guessing that before you started doing that, you wouldn't have even have anticipated that you would have become synonymous with that look as well. So, you know, you see that, it's like, you know, that's a Tom Gerrard piece that's up like a mural somewhere in town. They're all over the place, and then when you see it, you know that is yours. It's uniquely yours. It's no one else's. And you know, from there you've evolved your style. So I guess like that whole, is my work good enough? That could be addressed by, like, it really just depends on what's your criteria of good enough. And maybe instead of changing your work, just change your reference.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's a good question to ask yourself as well. What do I need to change here? And that's what I've been doing. I've been looking at my art going, all right, like where am I going now? Like when I was living up in Byron Bay, like the heads didn't really work there. When I first got there, I started painting them all over town, and everyone's like, oh man, chill out. You know? And then I realized it wasn't really the right environment to be like painting on the streets in that way. And then and that's when a lot more nature started coming into my work, and landscapes and things like that. But I thought, hang on, like I'm not a landscape painter. This is weird for me. But then I started just owning that side of my artwork. And now I've arrived back in Melbourne, and I'm like, all right, where am I going next? And I'm starting to sort of map that out for myself. And that is through asking the questions like, you know, is there anything I want to change here? Is there you know, what am I happy with? What am I not happy with? What do I want to up level? And that's what I'm doing right now. And that's why I said I'm like, especially with the heads, I want to paint them in a wide, like a bit more diversity between them. I want to be able to do a one-line scribble of one, and you can go, yeah, you know, that's that I've done that, all the way through to like semi-realism. But then I can have a painting with a whole bunch of them dotted over a canvas, and they can be arranged, fit within that range, you know. So that's what I'm starting to play with now, like having just a wide range of variety within them.
And just give yourself that freedom, that allowance, just to experiment and just to see where it goes.
Yeah, yeah. Like I did a portrait just recently, and it was just a A3 work on paper. And I did 26 paintings to get this portrait right. And at first, at first I said, just do it in your own style. I tried doing it just like how I'd paint one of the heads. And it's like, just look at the photo. It's like, oh yeah, he's got blonde hair. It's like this and that. And it didn't look anything like the guy. And then I thought, oh shit, there we go. And then I did another one, and it looked a bit more like him. Another one, not quite. And I ended up doing all these paintings. And at first, like when I was in the midst of it, I thought, do I have it in me to be able to do this? And then I just thought back to my years of skateboarding and all that. It's like, mate, it's just like landing the trick. You know, he's like, you know, you got to learn it, and then, you know, you'll land it sooner or later. Just keep attempting it. And I did, and I landed the painting. You know, I was like, I nailed it. I did 3 that I'm really happy with. And but now I look at all the attempts, and you put them all up next to each other because they're all in the same format of exactly the same painting. and they look really cool as a set. And it's like, all right, now that's one really big work that I can hang together.
And you see like the evolution.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, I can't remember where I was going with this, but it's more just having faith that I was going to get it right. But it was a real learning experience, and then seeing all the different styles and development through that series. Like, I look at it now, I'm really proud of it as one large work, and that'll that's another one to get into a big institutional gallery or something like that. Like, if it's displayed right, it'll look really good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point. The one what you just touched on about, you know, that having that trust that you're going to eventually get to where you need to be, and that's purely just based on experience, right? Like that's just going to come through walking through life and, you know, hitting whatever roadblocks and thinking, okay, what do we need to do to navigate around this? You know, from a creative sense, you have a brief. In your case, I know that you with your commission works, that there's going to be some things that are going to absolutely stump you, you know, like with that portrait. And, you know, it will just be through having multiple runs on the board of having those same challenges come up, similar challenges, same but different, where you know that you will eventually just get there. You're not there yet, and you have to go through the process of experimentation and just fucking around, be willing to make the mistakes till you eventually find that aha moment. You're like, oh, okay. I think I needed that first version to get to that 26th version. You know, I needed number 3 was what set off number 4, and then number 5 was way off. So number 6 was probably closer to what number 4 was going to be, and then you can just keep on going back and saying, okay, that process was absolutely essential, and then you can expand on that and just put that across, like, you know, your 20-year career, and just think, okay, this is actually theoretically how it's always worked.
Yeah totally. And I've painted, I've been doing painting since then, where I've tapped into a lot of things I learnt from all the failures with doing that series. It was it was really interesting. It was like just little things, like, you know, like where certain shading happens on a face that I've never used before, never utilized. And now I look at old paintings and it's like, man, like without it, it looks a bit naked, you know. It's like, I've learnt new tricks, put it that way. And evolved my style.
Yeah, that's just it, isn't it? That's just artistic creativity, you know, that you're always absorbing, you're always going to be evolving and be just succumb to that.
Yeah, I have a lot of paintings that, every now and then I have paintings that come back from galleries, and I'll look at them and I'll realize that, like, some galleries would have them for like 3 or 4 years, and then I'll be like, oh, can I have my paintings back? And I would look at them and go, oh, like, there's heaps of so much I've learnt in between now and then that I want to like jazz up these paintings with. And I'll, like, some of them I'll just paint straight over, but others I'll be like, this is a really good painting, but I need to add a few of the new tricks in there.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll do that, might change a color or two, and then sign it as this year, and it's like a new painting for me.
Yeah. And then you just take it from the gallery and then just give it back to them in this new state?
Nah.
Hey, then it's not.
If they haven't sold it, I'll sell it myself. It's funny, things like that. Like, there's some paintings that will sit in the gallery for years, and they'll just have it in the stock room, just bubble wrapped, just slotted in between other paintings. That's why they're not selling, because they're not being shown to anyone. And then I'll get it back off them and sell it within a week sometimes, and be like, like, it feels pretty good. Don't have to pay the commissions.
You get the full, 100% of the money goes directly in your pocket.
Yeah, it's like, give it here, mate, I'll sell it. Yeah.
When we connected, would have been when this podcast had started, and you were in Byron Bay, and I also came across at the time the Arts Career Academy that you and Claire both started while you were in Byron Bay. Yeah.
It was actually, it started during COVID. The conversation started. It's been a long, like, as far as a business being launched, it's been only a bit over a year. But the conversation, like, you know, when building a business, when starting with initial, like, pen and paper, it was probably 2021 the conversation started. And we just, it started with Claire Bradshaw, my wife, and and she's got a background in business coaching and corporate marketing, and she loves the arts, and helps a lot of people, like, you know, build their businesses up, and, you know, points out areas they can develop and everything. And I was in a situation where my through doing Bench Talk, my podcast, I had lots of people asking me for art career advice, like all the time. Like I get cornered at art exhibitions, and I have lots of emails come through and DMs on Instagram and stuff with people wanting advice. And I felt that I just kept having to say the same thing over and over. It's like, oh, should I just type something up and cut and paste it? And then we decided to just have to start building a course together. And we thought, look, we can record all of this, like build a course, record it, have it online, and then people can pay to do the online course. And so we just met up we went out for breakfast every Wednesday morning, and we'd just sit there and just with a pen and paper and just brainstorm it out. And I'd tap into all my knowledge of what it's taken me to build my art career, and then Claire would tap into her knowledge of how businesses are built. And then we sort of went to and fro with that. And we built like a 6-week online course called Going Pro. And it's like, once again, we don't help artists really find their style. That's up to them to do that. We can give them sort of clues and things, exercises to do to help bring that out of them. But it's more about like the other side of doing your art. Like, how do you put yourself out there? How do you be seen? How do you build a career? How do you run a business? And how do you grow your career? And that's what we really focus on. And so we just did 6 modules, so 6 different subjects, and it's a 6-week course, and it's really I don't know, it's changed our lives in a giving aspect, because we show up every fortnight with our students and meet on Zoom, and everyone's chatting about what they're doing, but just seeing where our students have come and where they're going, it's mind-blowing, and it's really rewarding, because I feel with being an artist full-time, it's a real it's like I get to pleasure my creativity. Like it's my favorite thing to do in the world is be in the studio and painting. I get to do it every day. Whereas now with this, it's a way for me to give back and help uplift other people. And I've always been ever since I was in high school, I was always big on connecting people. And so it's a big part of that as well, like building community around the arts as well. And, you know, we've got students from all over the world, and, you know, other students will go to where the other artists are and stay at their houses and everything. It's just seeing this like network building. It's been really rewarding. The interesting thing with all the like businesses and projects I do outside of my art career, they're all things that I want in my life, and I don't see them out there. So with Bench Talk, my podcast, like when I started that, I was working as a graphic designer, and I was like, man, where's the podcast with artists talking about their art career? And I couldn't find it, and so I just started it. And then the same with the Art Career Academy. I was thinking, gee, if I had someone just sort of lay things out and show me the do's and don'ts, I would have like, you know, my trajectory would have happened a lot faster than it did. And so that's what I've done. I thought, oh, well, let's lay it out so we can help people, because like I know that there's so many artists in the world, and I don't feel threatened by any of them, because the more that you can be yourself as an artist, the more you can own it. Because I remember even moving up to Byron Bay, I had friends say to me, oh, there's a lot of artists up there, like, and it's a small community and not a lot of industry. Like, don't you feel threatened by this? And it's like, no, because like I'm doing me and they're doing them. And it's the same with across the whole art world. Like, look how many art galleries there are. Like every city's got so many art galleries, and, you know, even in Melbourne, there's like thousands of artists in Melbourne, and everyone's working. Like, well, not everyone, but like there's a lot of work to go around, you know? There's lots, like, and you just put that on a global scale. It's, I don't know, the arts is something that's needed in human society.
100%, man.
You know.
And, you know, to your point about the whole giving, when you're creating this community, and that was the thing when we, you know, you had, you put on that dinner and you grabbed a whole bunch of artists together, and it was just for no other reason other than just to get together. Just sit around and just, shoot the shit.
Exactly.
And just enjoy each other's company. When you create this sense of community, you're creating this support, and you're giving this information and you're sharing knowledge, then you're bolstering up the industry. And if you're bolstering up the industry, you're lifting everyone up with you. You're at a particular standard, even not just in Melbourne, but globally. Your work is being showcased in, all the corners. And if you can take people up to that level, or just teach them the things that you've learned and lift them up, then now what you've done is that you've created a whole community that is now at your level, or at least just bringing them up with you. And then it puts Melbourne on the map. I guess, we'll start off with Melbourne because being Melbourne based, it elevates the community up to a particular level, and it creates more interest, more public interest, more global interest. And when there's more interest, then everyone's standard has to lift. And when everyone's standard lifts, then the interest grows. And it's just this whole perpetual thing of when you are willing to give more, then just more will come back.
Totally. Yeah, I love it. And as I said before, I've always been big on connecting people. Like, it's always been a real passion of mine. It's something innate within me. Even when I was in high school, I was friends with all the different groups. Like all the goths will hang together, and the footy players will hang together. And I'd be moving between all the groups and stuff. And even when I my years of doing graffiti, I started like different graffiti crews, from grabbing like artists who I admired and bringing them all together into one group. And this is just an extension of that. I'm just seeing so much potential within the art world. And it's like, if these early stage artists, if they had a bit more guidance, I think they could climb through the ranks a lot faster. And I'm seeing it happen now. Like, we've been doing it long enough, and our students have stuck with us through our momentum program that we've got. And you just see them just going from strength to strength.
Dude, that's awesome.
Oh,
man.
It's so rewarding. It's like, because I don't have kids, or I've never had pets or anything like that. It's like, it's like a like watching something grow. It's
And it's just how it works. I call it, like, and this is the same with this podcast, I just call it creating this a positive ripple effect. It's not about you, it's not about the work, it's just about how it affects everything else around you. And I think you guys are doing a great job, man. I think that it's great that you're back in town as well. And I'm sure that we're going to see more of this growth. I think that, as there's momentum behind Arts Career Academy, I think we're going to see more people having the confidence to take that leap of faith into developing a career in art. And then as that's happening, then we're going to see that more appreciation within our communities of wanting to grow art. Because I've also noticed that you said there's a lot of galleries, but there's also a lot of galleries closing and going down as well. There's economic strain. There's so many reasons why that'll happen. But to what you were saying before, I think like art is an integral part of our culture and community, of any culture and community. And it's something that needs to be preserved and treated carefully and just encouraged.
But even you saying that like galleries are closing down, like, yeah, there are, but there's also more ways than ever to be an artist.
That's true.
Like, if you go back to like say it's the 80s or 90s or whatever, and there's no internet, and like you're relying on the galleries, really, like they're your agents. They're the ones that are selling your paintings and flowing through work to you and everything. Whereas in this day and age, everyone can run their own personal brand, and it's it's not just relying on the galleries to have an art career these days. That's what I'm pretty much saying. Like,
that's absolutely true. Yeah. That is absolutely true. And and you guys explore that?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, if I solely relied on galleries for my income, I'd be working as a graphic designer again or something. I don't know, like something. Probably not graphic design. I'm done with that. I'll cross that off my future. But if I was solely relying on galleries, I wouldn't be making enough to be able to be a full-time artist. Like, it comes from lots of self-initiated projects and connections I've made with art collectors and just different projects. like selling on my online store, like so many different things. It's like I feel like I've got like probably 10, 15 different ways of making money off my artwork.
Yeah, and that's
You know.
that, and you've done a great job of that, and you have touched on how to use what you have and diversifying that. And that's not to say spreading yourself thin. It's how you can have the essence of one thing, and how it can be applied, and how it could be applied to different streams.
Exactly.
And saying, but you're not, and it's interesting because you do that, but you're not diluting, or you're not tainting you or your work. It's just making it more accessible, for one, and just giving it different points of interest as well. Like it doesn't have to be something you hang on the wall.
Totally. Yeah, there's like the beauty of it is I just get to be me and just do me. Like that's what I say to all our students as well. Just do you, and do you to the best level that you can. And that's all you can really do as an artist is and express yourself and put yourself out there. And there's a lot of confidence building as well. Like having your first solo show is so scary and all that type of stuff, but then you break through those barriers. Like even sitting down doing this sort of thing, like being on camera and all that, like for some people I'll be really nervous.
Yeah.
Like I know even I'm a bit nervous sitting here, but you just break down those barriers and just keep moving forth, all in the name of like loving your art and loving what you do.
Yeah, and just try new things.
Yeah, exactly. Like life, who wants to live in Groundhog Day?
Yeah, what I love about what you guys do is that you both, you and Claire, you complement each other so well that it's not even about being pragmatic about these are the things that you need to do to run a successful business, but it's also helping and nurturing the artists and helping them form a particular mindset that you need to go in with. So, to the thing about how there's that inferiority complex is trying to help navigate through that as well. So you guys touching on a lot of the underlying things before you start trying to help with the actionable things, right? Because I think it's really important for people to understand concepts before they learn about how to apply those. And I think you guys do a really great job with explaining this before you do action this. And 6 weeks, a 6-week course could, the amount that you guys are sharing in that time, it could profoundly just shift the perspective, even enough to send them on a trajectory, in an upward trajectory professionally, where then they can start to experiment and learn for themselves, right? And then there's always you guys that's there to support that particular growth. You're not there to prescribe them and tell them exactly what to do. You're just there to support them along the way, right?
Yeah, totally. And we also, there's no guidebook for the art world. So like I know for me personally, I've had some ups and downs with say galleries, because no one told me like, these are the do's and don'ts when working with a gallery. And you can be really happy that you're working with a gallery, but then you do something wrong and you don't even realize you've done anything wrong, and it could tarnish that relationship. So we get like gallery owners come in and lay out like, this is what we're looking for in artists, and these are the do's and don'ts. We get people from the council come in, say, look, if you want to do like a public sculpture or a public art project, this is how you go about it, A, B's and C's. And it's really good for me as well, because I get to absorb all this knowledge too, and think, gee, I've been doing that the whole time and I didn't realize it. Or but it keeps me on my game too, because if I'm preaching all this stuff like do this and don't do that, like I better make sure that I'm doing that in my own career. And and also, as I say, you've never really learnt something until you teach it. And I can sit there and go, this is what you need to do, A, B, and C. But then having to actually sit down and explain that and teach that, it's like, oh wow, now I really understand it.
And a lot of what yours is through lived experience as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and this is when we're talking about uni, I felt as though that a lot of what is being taught wasn't lived experience.
There was something that happened to me when I decided to be a full-time artist, and like my wife quit her job a month before, And I said, oh, don't worry, I got you. You
Yeah.
know, like I'll support us with the graphic design and while she builds her business. And then I quit my job probably 3 weeks later. And I was so stoked to be an artist. I was like, oh man, I'm finally doing it, full-time artist. And I had an exhibition coming up and I did the exhibition and then I made enough money for 3 months of living. And then by the end of that 3 months, I had a mural come up and all these other things. And I feel that I was so excited. And I knew it was my dream to be an artist. Like I knew it. And I was like, I'm doing it, you know. And because of that, I got really, not obsessed, but I was really highly motivated to make it work for as long as I possibly could. And at first I thought, oh, let's see if I can go for 6 months. Let's see. And then I made it to the first year. And once I made it into like the second year, it's like, no, this is it. This is me for the rest of my life. And so I was really, really focused on how to make that happen, how to keep the dream going, you know. And I think through learning all that stuff and being so highly motivated to have that information that it's really helped me with my career. And that's what we've sort of funneled through into the Art Career Academy. And that's why I'm big on sharing that knowledge, because I've noticed there's artists out there for instance, Roan has been he's a really old friend of mine as well. And I've watched him go through his art career and he's always shown his cards. Like he developed a mural technique that they now call roning. They use it all over the world. And he invented that and he publicly put it out there and showed everyone how to do it. And he wasn't afraid that someone was going to say, like steal his idea and do it better or anything like that. It was like a contribution that he made to the art world. And as a result, instead of he's really elevated the mural scene because of learning this technique. Because people used to just plug a projector in and project it on a wall and mark it up like that. And he taught people how to do it with reference points and all this type of thing, which is now like the industry standard. And just seeing people be open with their information, I've seen it actually carry their career further. And I thought that was always a really good thing to do. Because I have seen artists play their cards close to their chest and they usually end up like no one really, they don't really get out there that much because they're worried people are going to steal their ideas and all that type of stuff.
Man, there is more value in sharing of it. You know, with your podcast, for example, that was working in tandem with your artistic career, the trajectory, right? And so as you're talking on the mic, you're developing your art, but then at some point along that way, you've now just become an authority in the space of visual art. That you're not just an artist, but you're also a person that is setting a standard.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Man, generosity is such a great attribute to have in life. I think I love it. And gratitude. Yeah. I'm grateful to be in a position to be able to share this stuff with people. Like I could be back working in kitchens like I was when I was 18 and just have pursued that. And like pursuing your dreams isn't easy. Like think about if you want to be like I don't know, a footy player or whatever. You got to like go for it. You can't like some people have natural talent and it lands in their lap a bit, but majority of people will have to work really hard to get to that place, you know.
The difference between being an artist and a footy player is that you don't have full control over whether or not you want to be a footy player. There's only, you know, however many spots on a roster.
Yeah, but there's only so many spots in a gallery as well. They only have like 12 exhibitions a year or you know. Yeah, I do agree. But also with artists, we get better with age.
Yeah, and footy players, they got like 10 years at best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
by the time you're 30, you're a vet. Yeah. And as an artist, you've barely started.
Nah, like, man, I just turned 47 and I feel like I'm in my prime. Like I've just entered my art prime years. I feel I feel like probably 42 to like say 70 or say 40 to like 75. I feel is like art prime years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's only because you're only 47, but wait till you're 60 and then you'll see whether or not your prime years, you'll be like, 50 to about 60.
Yeah. Well, maybe I just feel like I'm just getting started all the time. Like I always feel like that because there's always new ideas flowing through. And things.
That's a great place to be, dude.
Yeah.
That's a really great place to be. I'm 41 and I've hit a big reset button. And I think that there's a lot of graphic designers do that. I think that you get to a certain point with age, and like I don't know about you, but like I love graphic design, but I also feel as though that what graphic design was doing, it was serving me then, and as I've gotten older, life has changed, values have changed, learnings has changed, and it doesn't serve this anymore. And I think that's why, like, I've hit the big reset button and thinking, I'm starting a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, my big reset was when I started my podcast as well. I was edging out of graphic design, and the podcast was the thing that helped propel my art career big time.
And this is exactly why, like, I've admired you and your work and everything you've done, because I'm like, fucking hell, this guy's like, he's 6-7 years older than me, and his whole journey started 6 or 7 years ago, and he's now doing what I would love to be doing. Like probably not like for like, but if I could podcast and do art all day, if that's just my life, awesome. And you are a shining example of how you can do that. And then, on the side, you also have this you bring it into the fold that Arts Career Academy is like, and you know what I'm also going to do? I'm also going to start educating people and passing on the things that I've learned on that journey and onto that next generation. It's like fucking brilliant.
No, thanks. Yeah, I feel really fulfilled and happy in life. Like,
good on you.
Yeah, like I never thought I'd get to this point in life. Like, I don't know, man. Like I even just not graduating school and all that, I always thought I was a bit stupid or something because my reading and writing's still nothing to be desired. But and so it was that, because people put a lot of, if your handwriting's illegible and you're not that good at reading, you're not intelligent, and that's what I was told through my childhood, and so that held me back. And then when I was working in warehouses and just shitty jobs, and I thought, well, this is it. And I thought I would have made it if I get a job sitting at a computer. And that's when I go into graphic design. I'm like, oh man, I made it. Look, I'm in an office. I'm in like an advertising agency, like at a computer, at a desk.
It's air conditioning.
Yeah. Then I realized that wasn't it either. And I thought, oh, I really want to be an artist. And I thought the mountain to climb to go from like, oh, I'm a graphic designer, I want to be an artist. I just thought, well, yeah, like fat chance. Only a few people get to do that in this world. And so to be actually here having this conversation with you now, like I'm blown away that I'm here.
Dude, same.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's why I always say anyone can do it. Anyone can do art. It's you just got to work it all out.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science. It's not like high jump. It's way easier.
Yeah. Where can people find you and connect with you? You and Arts Career Academy.
Well, my for me and my art, it's Tom_Gerrard on Instagram. On my website, it's tom-gerrard.com, and the Art Career Academy is artcareeracademy.com. And also my podcast is called Bench Talk, and that's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Definitely get on to that. There have been so many incredible conversations you've had, and for me, surprising guests that have just popped up. Highly prolific friends you have in your network as well. So if there are artists that that people want to check out, that they're fans of, there's a good chance that they've been on your podcast as well.
Yeah,
man. So what are you working on at the moment? Can you share any of that?
Well, I've only moved back to Melbourne about a month ago,
Yes.
so I've finally settled. I've set up a new studio in Paran, which is like I'm really happy to be in the thick of it, in the mix. And I'm working on a big solo show for next year that's going to happen in Melbourne. And what else? I don't know, just work. I've got a bunch of commissions on. I just sort of settle it in and build. Just working on my art. Really, I've got a bunch of murals that I'm looking to do, and I've also got there's a lot of walls that I want to paint around town. I'm just working out how I'm going to do that. Knock on a few doors and all that type of stuff. But yeah, really, I've moved house and studio interstate, and I've just got I'm set up on the other side, and so I do have some things on the horizon, but I'm really like just enjoying settling back in,
just sinking your talons back into Melbourne.
Yeah, and there's like, I don't know, there's so many good like restaurants and bars and people to catch up with and things to do, galleries to go to. I'm just really loving being back in the city. It's it's such an awesome place to live.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Hey, mate, I love your work. I've been a fan of your work for many years, and it's been such a privilege to connect and to have you join me in this conversation, to learn so much from you. It's absolute privilege, man. Thank you so much, Tom Gerrard.
Thanks, Wayne. I really appreciate the opportunity, and man, it's been great to connect with you and get to know you.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.
Cool.